up and try again.
Hi everybody, welcome back. We're gonna start with the concepts of functions in Python, which will help us quite a few for a couple of things later on, since we're gonna decompose the entire program, the entire script into small pieces of functionality. They're called functions, and I'm using a different interface, a different IDE. I know we usually connect to the server, but in this time, since I have a Linux-based machine in my machine, so I have the console here, down here, and I have the coding part, the coding area up here. Okay, so I'm gonna create function example 01. I'm gonna save it this directly into the desktop. I put Python here. Let's see, save. So suppose that we have a program that asks the user to enter a number for X, and then we're interested to perform this operation. You probably remember this from math or one of your nightmares when we have a function of X that is equal to x squared plus 3. It's just a function. And suppose that you evaluate the function f of x when x is equal to 2. So the only thing you have to do is every time you see an x, you plug and play the corresponding value for x is equals to 2, and then we plug and play and then we evaluate. So 2 to the power 2 is 4, plus 3 is 7. So if we call this function f of x of 2, then the result will be 7 because we just proved that thing. Okay, we're gonna try to do that thing in a regular program. So for that, suppose that we get the value of x coming from the user. Yeah, we're gonna use just input and just enter the value for x. And once we have that value, the only thing we have to do is to calculate f of x. So basically, y is going to be x to the power 2 plus 3. And the only thing we have to do at this point is only printing the value of y. Very simple. So we're just going to call Python 3 function example 1. Enter the value for x. Suppose it's 2. The value is 7. Yeah, suppose the value that I provide here is 4. So 4 times 4 plus 3 will give us 19. So this works. Yeah. The only question is that later on we're going to start calling this function and again and again and again. It's going to be a little bit more redundant to do copy and pasting. So suppose that we want to test it from x equals to 2 all the way to 200. Well, that kind of makes a lot of lines of code. Yeah. And we can do a loop if you want to, right? But and I'll demonstrate that later on. But we need to be able to recognize how to separate the functionalities from the actual code, because we might have not only f of x, we can have another functions. So let me just tell you how in Python you define a function. You're gonna go all the way to the top and you define, in this case, the function f of x, colon. When you, I don't know if you can, we should be able to recognize, but this provides some kind of scoping right away. Because every time you use the word def is for defining a function. Yeah. And then what you're gonna do, basically you're gonna do this thing. Yeah. You're gonna do that. You're gonna perform that operation. And you can put it to, if you want to, you can put it to y, like that. And the only thing you have to do is to return y. The reason why we need to use the word return is because we're expecting something, what we call the function. Yeah. So for example, on line 5, line 6, we extract the information from the user. On line 7, we're gonna call f of x, which is upstairs, and then we're just gonna report it on line 8. If I run this guy again, enter the value for x is 2, 7, 3, 12, 4, 19. So this will demonstrate how to break the piece of code that we just wrote into a module. Why is this important? Because we might have another function that we were interested to define. Yeah, for example, we define g of x, which is another function that basically we can say, well, y is equal to x, or we can say 2 times x plus x squared minus 2 minus 3 times x plus 1. So a little bit more elaborate. Yeah, we can provide x, and then we just return y if you want to. So now we have two functions, f of x and g of x. And not only that, now we can make something more interesting. For example, when you provide x, you can do f of x plus g of x. Yeah. And then you provide it to y, and then you report the value of y at the end. I'm just going to call this again. Enter the value of x, suppose is 2. Then that's a different value. Negative 2 is 14. So it's a decreasing function. So now we broke the function into two small functions. We create another program just to demonstrate this. Function example 02. Just gonna save this in the directory of desktop. And it's very similar to the function that we just create here. Yeah, suppose that we're interested only in f of x. And then when we run this program, we can do something like this. Suppose that we want to basically print the value of x, then gonna put some tabs, and then the value of f of x. What I'm doing here is just gonna make a small table here. Look, check this out. If I'm trying to run this part, just with 2, it's just printing x and f of x, right? But we can be more creative if we make a loop. For example, for every x in the range of 0 and maybe 101, so we can include 100. The only thing we gotta do is to print. We're gonna print the value of x, followed by some tabs, and then we're gonna call f of x. So check this out, what's gonna happen. These two lines 6 and 7, the only thing that they're doing is to print the header of a table. Line 8 is responsible to make the whole iteration between all the values between 0 and 100. Yeah, and each of those values is going to be 0, is going to be 1, 2, 3, all the way to 100. We're going to print that value and then space by the function of x. Function of x, we're going to call this function on line 1. When we pass the value of x, it's going to be 0 at the very beginning. It's going to be 3 because 0 to the power 2 is 0 plus 3 is 3, and so on. So we're going to try that. I forgot to save it. Sorry. Okay, let's see the table that we just generate. So if you notice, we have x. So f of x, when it's x is 0, is 3. Of 1 is 4. 2 is 7. We already knew this from the previous example. 3, 12, 19, so all the way to 100. Yeah, that demonstrates that table that we have there. This is a combination between using method invocation or method call and then what we call loops to interact. going to post this on the website for your convenience. And in case you have any questions, please let me know.